And welcome, we're the Aussie Guys. I'm AJ, here in Aussie Guys Studio on my own still. My co-host, I'll let you know, Bill, my co-host is sunning himself on the beaches of Spain as we speak.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. And I'm in
Nice.
Very nice. And I'm in a cold studio, middle of winter here in Melbourne, cold studio, getting up at all hours to do team previews. But anyway, I'll do the hard yards. That's fine. Not that chatting to you is the hard yards. I do enjoy it. And we've had you on lots of times. We originally met in the SFB, which I'll bring up in a second. Bill Riccette, writer for the Panthers Wire and the Bengals Wire. And you can find him on Twitter at Bill_Riccette. That's 2 C's and 2 T's. RICCETTE. Yep. And you do a ton of stuff, actually, Bill. You write for 4for4 Football as well, a variety of things. But you can check out his Twitter. You'll see a whole lot of stuff he's involved in. Bill, a warm welcome. Thanks for joining me again, too.
Absolutely, yeah. I think this is already, third year now I've been on with you guys to do these previews, so it's starting to become tradition a little bit, but
yeah.
Definitely enjoyed coming on. But yeah, you're right. I've picked up a lot of stuff over the last couple of weeks, so it's going to be a very busy season, to say the least.
My word. But, we enjoy it, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole reason we do this. That's the whole reason I want to do all these things and get this career going, so...
I first touched base with you in SFB 7, I want to say.
I think it was, yeah.
I remember that you were doing these periscopes after each day of our draft, which was really super cool.
Does anyone even still use Periscope anymore?
I don't think so.
I thought that the other day, to be honest.
No.
Through some Twitter Live or YouTube.
Right. That's
funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they were cool to do. It was fun to just jump on and just talk about the day itself.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing with SFB. Like, I mean, there's 1,200. Yeah, 1,200 this time, SFB 9. So,
what next year is going to be.
We've got, basically zero chance of winning this thing or getting even close. But the fun part is just being in it, really, isn't it? And it's just being in the draft and, touching base with people maybe you wouldn't normally... It sort of brings the community pretty close, closer together.
It really does. I mean, I'll admit, when I met my division mates, I really didn't know who they were. Now, I was just meeting them for the first time, but we've already created a group chat on Twitter, and these guys are very active. They love to talk and chat, and especially during the draft, it was a lot of fun. And I'll say this too: we got our draft done really quick. The draft started that Monday. We were done by, I think, that Friday.
Wow.
Yeah, we zoomed through our draft. There were divisions that were maybe still in, round 9 or 10 or something.
Yeah.
We were into, round 20. We were flying. So, it was a good and bad thing, obviously. I mean, it's fun to just draft in general.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is also nice to kind of have that experience drag out a little bit. But, no, but it's been great, man. Everybody in this division is fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with these guys throughout the season.
Yeah, and, I am conscious that, not only probably a very small percentage of people listening to this are in SFB, and that's the great shame of it. So that can get boring. But I thought I'd ask you, because I knew you'd be in SFB. I thought I'd ask you, give me a couple of guys that you were targeting late that you did manage to pick up that you're kind of secretly excited about?
Deshaun Hamilton's probably the first guy that comes to mind in that. I'm a huge fan of Deshaun. I think it was round 16 I got him, and I just felt like I didn't want to pass him up at that point. I'm really excited. For one, we have the Penn State connection. I'm always going to love him for that, just because he's a fellow Nittany Lion. But Denver has the feel of expanding their passing game a little more, especially with a quote-unquote upgrade at quarterback. I mean, I don't know how much of an upgrade Joe Flacco is going to be, but at least he can sling it a little better than Case Keenum or whoever did last year. And I think one of Cortland Sutton obviously is there, but there's still kind of questions. To me, I think one of the bigger beneficiaries of an expanded passing game is going to be Deshaun Hamilton. I think he's such a sneaky value pick. He's a sneaky guy late in drafts. I think he's really, and you saw him kind of come along a little bit at certain points last season. I think this season he's just going to continue to expand his game, and I think they're going to utilize him a little bit more. You know, he is dealing with, I think, a bit of an injury right now, but I just feel very confident in him. I'm excited for his future. I'm excited to see what he can be. So there was no doubt in my mind as far as late guys that he was someone that I definitely wanted to grab.
That's a good one. I like that.
I grabbed Tyrell Williams too, fairly late in the draft as well, with the Raiders. You know, somebody else has to catch the ball in Oakland, right?
Yeah,
You can't throw the ball to Antonio Brown 25 times a game. But Tyrell's a pretty good one. You know, coming over from the Chargers, he did well at times there. Just was a little crowded in that wide receiver group with LA. So Oakland, not as much going on there. I mean, you got Derek Carr now, quarterback, but he's always a question mark, as we know. But like I said, somebody's got to catch the ball outside of AB. So Tyrell late, and especially in a format like this where, I mean, you only need 50 points or 50 yards, and you get 5 bonus. You know, and Tyrell's someone I think that could potentially get that for you for a few games. So, you know, it's all about the upside, I think, for me with some of these guys.
Oh, for sure. And, you know, a little bit of a cautionary tale because I reckon I was pretty happy with my team through, say, 11. And then in the back 9, so to speak, it seemed like the guys I was targeting, I was missing out on by like 2 or 3 picks, and I just couldn't get ahead of it.
Yeah.
Which was an absolute killer. So just a general bit of advice for people going into their redraft leagues or whatever this year is, I think you just got to get your guy. Like, especially when you get in the back half of drafts, ADP kind of just goes straight out the window. Just grab your guy.
I agree. Absolutely. You know, don't be afraid. You know, use ADP, you know, to some extent, especially early. But you're right. If you're high on a guy, get him. If you feel it's around too early, then so be it.
Yeah.
Because if you feel it's around too early, then guess what? If you pass on him, then somebody else is going to feel the same, and he's going to grab him, and you're going to kick yourself for the rest of the draft. So you said it yourself, short, sweet, to the point. Get your guys. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, because I think, come fantasy playoffs, nobody will remember that you grabbed this guy around early, you know?
Exactly. Especially if they're performing as strong as you expect them to. No one's going to care that you took them in round 13 rather than 14.
Right. Exactly.
They're just going to remember the fact that he's kicking your butt and knocking you out just before the finals. That's what they're going to remember.
Exactly. Well, listen, let's talk Panthers. So,
yes, sir.
The 2018 Panthers, they went 7-9, but I mean, in actual fact, they were 6-2 before Cam hurt his shoulder. Yep. So without Cam getting hurt, they were looking at playoffs. Without a doubt. And I think that's something that people are probably kind of sleeping on a little bit this year, you know? Because you look at the record and you kind of dismiss the Cam injury a little bit. And, an injury to a quarterback, especially someone like Cam, has a pretty significant impact on a team. So it's a fair call. But what were your thoughts? I mean, I've probably encapsulated it a little bit, but like 2018 in a nutshell, Bill.
Yeah, you kind of put it perfectly. I think we could call it a tale of two seasons. First half of the season, I put them right up in near the upper tier of the NFC. I argued the only teams in the NFC that were better than the Panthers throughout the first half of the year were the 2 teams that wound up playing for the NFC title, the Rams and the Saints. I argued that the Panthers were right there with them. I mean, 6-2. They were only 1 game behind the Saints at that point, knowing that the Saints weren't coming on the schedule till like week 15. So they were right there in the division race. That Cam started getting banged up, and then that Thursday night game against the Steelers happened, and then the wheels just completely came off. I mean, that you could argue kind of started everything as well when they gave up like a 50-burger against the Steelers on that Thursday night. They just got absolutely... And that game started all right for them. They had a nice touchdown drive to start the game. And the next thing you know, Juju's going 75 yards the other way for a touchdown. And then they had, I think, a turnover and scoop and score, picks, or whatever the turnover was. But a quick score, and just like that, it's 14-7 Steelers, and then the wheels just completely came off. And then Cam can't throw more than 20 yards. The offense isn't explosive as they can be, and it just becomes a mess to watch throughout the second half of the season. And the only reason they ended up picking up a win at the end against the Saints was because they were playing the Saints JV team. I mean, they held out basically everybody. I think the top starter that was playing might have been Ted Ginn, because they pulled everybody, because Drew Brees wasn't even playing in that game.
Right,
Teddy Bridgewater ended up getting the start. So it was just an absolute disaster to watch this team feel like, they were going to cruise in the playoffs and maybe compete for a Super Bowl, ending up with a losing record and sitting in the middle of the draft. But Cam's healthy. I think there's a lot more expectations, a lot more hope going into this year. So I think they're going to prove that last year was more of a fluke than anything. Especially the shoulder injury obviously has a lot to do with that. So now that he's past that, I think it's fair to say that 2018 is going to be more of a fluke than anything, and I think they should be just fine this year.
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at some of the movement in the off-season, it's sort of a pretty even ledger, I think. Leaving the facility, Devin Funchess, probably not too much of a loss, in honesty. Well, look, that's probably unfair. He's a big target. Matt Khalil, not a big loss. Ryan Khalil, Julius Peppers, who's, 47 at this stage.
Something like that.
Yeah. Kyle Love, Thomas Davis, who's also something along those lines. Mike Adams, actually lots of aging guys, to be honest. Denoris Cersei. Coming in, Chris Hogan. So, I mean, you lost Funchess and you got Hogan. And I'm not saying that's a one-for-one. They're totally different players. But, I mean, right. Aldrick Robinson, Matt Paradis, that's fantastic. Signing. Gerald McCoy, another great signing. And Bruce Irvin, another strong signing. So, all in all, maybe the Panthers have actually improved.
And they actually were able to get Kyle Love back, which is nice, because they really needed that defensive tackle depth back, and Love provided a lot of that for them. So it was good to see him come back.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I'll start with Paradis. I remember sitting there, because all the talk was Paradis, I think, was talking to the Ravens. There might have been another team that involved, but it sounded like the Ravens might have been the favorites to grab Paradis, and all of a sudden the Panthers swoop in and sign him to a 3-year deal. And center, to me, was probably the biggest need on this team because of the the retirement, I should say, of Ryan Khalil.
Yeah.
So you get Paradis in there. He was dealing with injuries in Denver, but he's already been cleared. He didn't even start camp on PUP, which is a fantastic sign. So he's in there, obviously right in the starting lineup, so it's nice. So big signing there. You mentioned Gerald McCoy. With the Panthers moving to a 3-4 defense, they are going to sport, I think, one of the strongest front three lines in the NFL, with Poe, with Short, and with McCoy.
They've actually, if anything, got like too many guys. The rotation is going to be strong as all get out. You're right. But, like the addition of, I'm sort of segueing to the draft a little bit, but like adding someone like Brian Burns.
Yep.
But he'll probably play, he probably won't have his hand in the dirt.
No, he'll be standing up. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
No, and you mentioned the rotation. I have said many times on the podcast that there's a lot of good bodies on this team, and there's a lot of ways that I think the Panthers can mix and match these players. I mean, it sounds like it's going to start with, or at least the first two players that got reps at outside linebacker when camp started were Bruce Irvin and Mario Addison, but you expect Brian Burns will get in there, and they might even put him at DN. Who knows? But the second group was, I think, Cox, Love, and Butler were the front three. Well, the second team. So it's more likely that Burns is going to be on the outside, like you said, standing up. But he'll be in the mix. I think you can see I think Efe Obada is an intriguing player as well. I'm curious if they would put him with his hand in the dirt. But he's another guy that really worked hard last season to earn a spot on the 53-man roster. For those that might not be familiar, Obada was the international player from London that the Panthers had 2 years ago, that they were able to get an extra practice squad player because of this I think it's called the International Pathway Program.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it basically allowed them to have 11 players on the practice squad rather than 10 because Obada was that exempt player. Last year, he earned a spot and actually played pretty well, especially in Week 3 against the Bengals. Had a really fantastic game. I think he had a sack, a turnover, something else. So really stepped up. So he's a guy that I'm intrigued by. But you're right. The rotation of all the, just a lot of the depth I think they have throughout the front seven is, to me, going to make this Panther is one of the reasons I expect a lot of improvement from this Panthers team, because it's going to allow them to keep a lot of these players fresh. It's going to allow them to, kind of wreak havoc on these offensive linemen and, move into a 3-4. It's going to allow, I think, especially more of these linebackers to get on the field. Guys, Kuechly and Shaq were already there.
Yeah.
But it might create more room for someone like Jermaine Carter to see snaps, or some of these other guys, Christian Miller, their rookie fourth-round pick, could see time on the edge. So there's a lot of different ways I think they can go about this. But I think the Panthers fans have to be excited. I know there's a lot of predictions out there that are saying 7-9, 8-8, whatever the case may be. I still don't see a reason why this team can't win 10 games this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. And I think people are underselling the Panthers big time. And, they don't really have a good reason. I mean, maybe they're looking at the wide receiver core and sort of seeing seeing some gaps, but we'll talk about that in a second. You already mentioned Christian Miller, and obviously Brian Burns, who's a fantastic draft pick and just slots in there. That guy is an absolute machine.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fantastic to see him. Greg Little, a tackle, which is a good pick. And the only one that was a little curious was Will Grier. And I was a big fan of Will Grier in sort of scouting all the rookies before the draft. I didn't think he was going to be picked up by the Panthers. Probably very few people did, to be honest. What were your feelings about the Grier pick?
Yeah, I was a little surprised at it too, especially there were actually times where I thought Grier would actually be a first-round pick.
Right.
Quite honest.
Yeah.
I felt he was one, because we always see quarterbacks drafted late in the first round because we know teams love that fifth-year option. They love, kind of controlling the length of time with these players. That's why we've seen in the past Teddy Bridgewater get taken with the last pick of the first round, Lamar Jackson. So I felt Will Grier was a candidate for that. I thought maybe a team like the Chargers could have taken him late because they might, maybe they were starting to think about life after Phillip Rivers, or maybe a team was going to jump in for the back end of round one. Obviously, NFL teams weren't as high on Grier as some of us here in the media. That being said, one of the underrated Panthers needs going into this offseason was at backup quarterback. I think I read a tweet or a stat from somebody, too, that in the last how many years, the Panthers have only drafted, I think, like one quarterback. A lot of these guys are either undrafted players or free agent signings, whatever the case may be. Like Heineke was a free agent signing, and Kyle Allen went undrafted at Houston. So Grier is the first quarterback in, I think, quite some time that they've actually drafted, and you could already tell they want him to be at least the backup quarterback. First day of camp, he's the first guy in there as the second quarterback, and then it was Taylor Heineke with the threes. Now they're going to rotate quarterbacks, give everybody a shot at the number 2 spot. But I've said for a few weeks now, Will Grier seems to have that inside track to the number 2 quarterback spot. So the Panthers seem pretty high on him. Obviously, there's a lot of developing I think that he has to do. I think there's still some work that needs to be done. He never didn't impress all that well at the Senior Bowl, but there is some tape on him from his time at West Virginia, that obviously make you pretty excited about him. So there's definitely some work to be done, but give him time to develop, and I think could be a pretty decent quarterback. But for now, being behind Cam and getting to work with guys like North Turner and Scott Turner, I think it's going to give him the coaching he needs to develop, hopefully as quick as possible. It'll be interesting, though, especially in the preseason. I'm curious to watch him in the preseason in live NFL action.
That'll be great to watch. And look, you're right. I mean, backup quarterback is kind of an underrated position, really. But you think of how many backup quarterbacks played last year or in previous years. Just recently did the Titans preview, and I mean, their signing of Tannehill, I think, is huge, especially considering they've got a guy like Mariota under center. But
exactly. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in.
No, go for it.
I mean, there's people. I'm seeing people saying that he's not even just a backup. I'm seeing people saying he's coming in to compete for the starting job. There's some people that think Marcus Mariota isn't even guaranteed the starting spot, especially with this, I think, being the last. I think he's entering a contract year.
Yes, he is.
A lot of question marks at the quarterback position in Tennessee. So at least that's one thing that Panthers fans can be happy about, is that there's no question at the quarterback spot, unlike a team like Tennessee that you had all this hope for Mariota, and he just hasn't delivered, and now he's got, his fourth different offensive coordinator, I think, since coming in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not easy either. To
No.
constantly change offenses like that. That's tough for a young quarterback as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's not a whole lot that we can say really about Cam Newton. I think people know who Cam really kind of is as a player, and he's healthy, which is good news. I think the thing that I was curious to get your opinion on is because we're seeing, like, Tom Brady is going to turn 42. We're seeing Drew Brees play on, other players getting older like Eli Rivers, Roethlisberger. And I can't, for the life of me, given Cam's playing style, see him playing as long as those guys. I don't think he's going to be able to physically do it. What do you think?
Yeah, he would have to cut down his running style dramatically if he has any hopes of playing at the age of 40. I mean, Cam has taken a beating throughout his career, and eventually that's going to take his toll. At 30 years old, he would have a long way to go if he's going to catch the likes of Brady, Brees, even Rodgers. I mean, it's hard to believe, Rodgers is like 35, Roethlisberger's about 35. I mean, I guess you could throw the Roethlisberger, if you're going to argue the career length of Cam Newton, I guess you could throw Roethlisberger in there because of the way he's been playing, though. It doesn't feel like Roethlisberger has been taking off as much as he used to. Age could be a factor in that as well. But definitely, so Cam Newton, I think, would have to cut down on his running. And I think Christian McCaffrey allows the Panthers to do that with Cam. It allows Cam to not have to be as mobile as he once was, even when you had guys like Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams in the backfield. But I think Cam, and knowing he had that shoulder injury, maybe he'll be, at least subconscious to not want to run the ball as much, to try to protect his own body as well as, protect the ball and protect his team. I think that now you're getting into the time where you're trying to look out for yourself. I mean, he's only got 2 years left on his contract. So he'd like to get one more contract when he hits 32, and he'd like to obviously get a lot of money. Now, he's going to get a lot of money, no doubt, just because that's the way the quarterback market is in the NFL. I mean, when you see even average quarterbacks making like $20 million a year, you figure Cam's probably going to get maybe in like the $25 million range. But like I said, I think he probably understands that he can't keep being mobile like this forever. Even Russell Wilson doesn't run as often as he might need to or has to. With the weapons he has, he doesn't have to rely on himself as much anymore, and that puts less pressure on him too. Because they have so many other guys that they have to worry about on that offense. But yeah, do I see Cam playing till he's 40? Not right now. No, if we're talking, I mean, that's still, like I said, 10 whole years till he's 40. That's a lot of time for all those all those beatings that he's taken to kind of add up.
Yeah,
really
yeah.
full.
I sort of feel like 36, 37 might kind of be it. But, still, the drafting of Will Greer is interesting because it just gives, as you said, it gives a solid backup to Cam in case anything happens. And then also, guys like this, they have value. We know they have value. And so, you might the Panthers might end up trading Greer and, reaping the rewards, perhaps.
Yep. Like the Patriots used to do with all their quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's right. But let's talk about let's go to the O-line briefly because we've already touched on a few aspects of that because, the guys that are going to be protecting Cam, they've got a really important job and hence the signing of Matt Paradis was super important. Re-signed Darrell Williams. Left tackle Taylor Moton is fantastic. And then, it's a little patchy, but you've got enough pieces that I think it's going to be a really good line. And, of course, you did draft Greg Little in the second as well. So it looks like a solid unit, really, from front to back.
A lot better position than it was heading into week one last season, that's for sure. They're not having to rely on Matt Khalil at left tackle anymore, which is a huge sigh of relief. I like the pieces on the offensive line. I've been a huge Taylor Moton fan ever since I saw him at the Senior Bowl and watched some of his film out of Western Michigan. He's a powerful blocker. He showed that in college. He showed that at the Senior Bowl, and he's been showing that with the Panthers. The only question really is what side are they going to play him on? Early practice reps have been that he's on the right side with Darrell Williams on the left side and Greg Van Roten at left guard.
Ah.
And yeah, because I think the Panthers really like Moton at right tackle, and it doesn't really seem like they want to move him from there. I think they're really set on him playing the right side. So that leaves Williams on the left side, and it's a matter of is he going to play left tackle or is he going to play left guard? And I think that has more to do with the development of Greg Little.
Right.
I think Greg Little is able to earn his spot this season. He'll be at left tackle. Williams will be at left guard. If they'd rather Moton begin as the backup swing tackle, then I think you're going to see Williams at left and Van Roten at left guard. And Van Roten held his own last season. He was the only offensive player to play every single snap. So he is that going for him. And he wasn't too bad, for a spot that had a lot of question marks going into last season because of the loss of Andrew Norwell. So they were trying to patch something there. Moton was even one of the guys potentially in play for left guard before all these injuries happened, and they had to play him a tackle. Now they have no choice but to keep him a tackle because he's so good there. So it really, like I said, it really boils down to Greg Little, but I think you've at least got a few solid guys on that left side that you could feel comfortable there. Paradis is going to come in and secure that center spot, and then Trey Turner is still playing well at right guard. So the offensive line it's a much better group than it was last season. And I think it's gonna be another huge reason why it's going to allow this offense to continue to be as explosive as I think it can be, because it's not like, especially from the right side with Moton. Moton rarely gives up pressures, so you're not going to see, especially with a lot of these teams that bring strong pass rushes from both sides. Moton on either side gives you a huge sense of security for Cam Newton. And then, Greg Williams, before we know he was a strong tackle before he got injured. Is it a bit of a risk, him playing left tackle coming off that injury? Maybe, but they didn't give him a lot of money. It was only like $7 million. This is kind of one of those prove-it deals. And he seems like he's healthy. Again, like Paradis, didn't start camp on PUP, which is a huge positive sign. So you're throwing him out there. I think he can hold his own as he has been. I feel very confident in this offensive line group.
It doesn't hurt having one of the most dynamic players in the entire NFL in your offense either. Which is where I'm...
No, it doesn't. Not at all. That's always a good thing.
Transitioning, obviously, to CMC because, man, and I must confess that in the draft, in the rookie class, I was sort of, not lukewarm. I mean, I liked CMC, but I didn't think that he was going to be the player that he has turned out to be. And certainly last year, with the whole North Turner thing and the whole emphasis on giving more carries to CMC, I was skeptical. I thought, I don't know if this is really going to suit his style of play. I don't really sort of see him as a banger, you know. And man, he had an unbelievable season. Actually, it's funny because I've got... Hang on, I'm just reaching over. So, I'm a Charger fan. I've got a signed helmet in front of me here. LaDainian Tomlinson, 2003. This was the year where he got 1,645 yards on the ground and 100 receptions. He was the first player in the NFL to do that, like over 1,000 yards on the ground and 100 receptions in a season. But last year... CMC did it. Same thing. Yep. In actual fact, CMC was the third player now to have done it. Do you know who the other one was?
Matt Forte.
Yes, on the nose. You got it. 2014, Matt Forte had 1,038 rushing yards and 102 catches. And CMC had, 1,098 yards, and he caught 107 passes for 867 receiving. That's ridiculous. The guy is amazing.
You know you have a special player when the coach is trying to think of ways to give you plays off and get you off the field for a couple plays.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much what Ron Rivera was alluding to when I took in his press conference at the Combine, when I got a chance to talk to him. And I think that's one of the reasons that led to them looking at least drafting a running back, which they did in the 5th round in Jordan Scarlett. So there might be some times where they're going to spell McCaffrey, but it would be a play, maybe 2 at most, because let's face it, you're not taking McCaffrey off the field for an extended period of time unless he gets banged up, which, hopefully he doesn't. But he's just become so dynamic. Like you said, it's just so fun to watch all the different ways that they can utilize. We knew he was a pretty good pass catching back, but yeah, the big question going into year 2 was, can he be that between the tackles runner? Can he actually power through and get yards that way rather than just stretching to the outside or catching swing passes or whatever? And he proved without a shadow of a doubt that he can run between the tackles. And now there's no doubt that this is the workhorse back of the future for the Panthers. And it's not like there's really much behind them. I mean, there's, some decent guys behind them, like Scarlett. Scarlett was a good running back coming out of Florida. The main reason he fell so far in the draft was because of, the issues he had in college, namely the credit card scandal that he got involved in. But he's still a talented back. And then you have Cameron Artis-Payne, who it feels like has been with the Panthers forever, but has barely seen the field. The guy might only get like 5 carries a game, if that. To me, I think he's on the roster bubble, actually. I wouldn't be surprised if he's among the final cut. But you've still got Jordan Scarlett, Elijah Holyfield, or undrafted 2018. A lot of talent out of Georgia, but the Combine killed him, and that's what led him to be undrafted. So, I mean, there's decent guys behind McCaffrey, but, man, if McCaffrey ever has to miss an extended period of time, this offense will suffer dramatically. Because you can't replace his talent right now. There's really... How many backs right now in the NFL, can you argue, are on the same or better talent level as McCaffrey? Not many.
No.
Saquon, Elliott maybe is up there, Kamara, not many others.
No. And, I mean, you and I know well, having just done SFB 9, I mean, there was a good number of leagues. So there was 120 leagues, and in a good number of them, like a really good, decent percentage, McCaffrey went 101. And if he didn't, if Barkley went 101, then McCaffrey was often 102. Yeah.
And for good reason, because, and we talked about the point system in this league earlier, all these bonus points. I mean, you get 5 bonus points if a player gets 50 rushing yards and 50 receiving yards, 50 of each, So McCaffrey can easily get you 20 points a game just from that.
Oh, yeah.
He'll easily get you 50 and 50 a game. So that's 10 points right there.
Yeah.
5 bonus points for each. So that right there is 20 points, plus however many catches he gets, plus however many times he finds the end zone. This guy's going to average 25, 30 points a game, I think, in this league.
Yeah. It's going to be insane. And you point out quite rightly that we did highlight how important Cam was last year. But, I mean, you lose CMC, it's going to be the same. It's going to be just as devastating.
Yeah, you can't replace them.
No.
It's so hard to replace them right now.
Now, this is the thing that I think that this is maybe the area where if we talk about I might just lump wide receiver and tight end all together. This might be the area where people sort of feel like the Panthers don't, are maybe a little bit lacking, but I don't really see it because you've got DJ Moore who's really come on. I mean, he had, in the Week 11 game against Detroit, he caught 7 for 157. That was just prior to Newton's getting hurt. He's really sort of, on trending up. Chris Hogan can play a role, and Greg Olsen is healthy, but I mean, behind Greg Olsen, you've got Ian Thomas, who looks fantastic. And Curtis Samuel, he's going to have a role for sure in this offense as well. In fact, I know a lot of people are sort of taking him late in drafts as a bit of a sneaky ad. But you look at this group all together, and then you add in CMC, and it actually looks like a really good offense.
Curtis Samuel, I think, is set for a breakout year. For anyone listening, you heard it here others may have gotten into it for me. Shout out to my buddy Matt Harmon. He's one guy I think is all over Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
Don't forget the little people, Matt. I love you. No, I'm glad he's doing big things. I'm glad he's with Yahoo. He's a great guy. But yeah, Curtis Samuel, you really saw him find his niche in this offense last year. Really kind of overcome the injuries that ruined his rookie season. And now he comes into year 3, which is typically a breakout year for a lot of players. And he's more or less the number 2 receiver in this offense. I think you're going to see a lot of him and DJ Moore on the field together, which gives you a lot of dynamics. I mean, DJ Moore, they're really excited about him being the quote-unquote number 1 receiver because, they don't really have defined roles. But Moore is the guy that'll stretch the field vertically, stretch the field horizontally. He'll beat you really at all levels of the field. And then you add a guy like Samuel, who is kind of similar in that sense too. I think he's another guy that can really give you good catches throughout the field, especially in the middle of the field. I think Moore and Samuel are going to complement each other pretty well, and it's going to be tough for defenses to kind of match up with these guys. And then, you mentioned Hogan, who can be a solid possession receiver. Jarris Wright is still involved in the mix. If there's one position, I think, that it feels like they're kind of deep and it feels like final cuts are going to be tough, it's wide receiver. Because there's some good players here, even after, say, the 6th guy, and the Panthers are probably only going to keep 6. So there's going to be some pretty decent guys that are going to get cut from this team and find themselves as free agents before the season starts and be scooped up by other teams. When you look at the tight end position, I'm a huge Ian Thomas fan. He had some moments last year when Greg Olsen went down. And actually, when I talked to Rivera at the Combine, I actually asked him about Ian Thomas. I said, what are you hoping for in year 2 out of Ian Thomas? And he said he just wants him to be more consistent, and he was certainly up and down. Like I said, he had his bright moments in some games last season, but there were games where he just seemed to disappear. And I'm sure a lot of fantasy owners know that quite well too, because Thomas was one of the big streaming options down the stretch with Olsen being hurt. So it's all about just keeping it consistent, and I think you're going to see him be involved more. I mean, we're eventually getting to the point where he's going to be the featured tight end because Greg Olsen can't be there forever. As productive as Greg Olsen has been over the years and still is, he's another guy that's getting up there in age, and it's eventually going to be time to pass the torch, and Thomas is going to be a perfect guy, I think, especially in this type of offense. So just stay consistent with Thomas. That's what it boils down to, and I think he can be a really strong tight end in this offense. But overall, it's a solid group, especially at the receiver position. There's more confidence, I think, in this receiver group than there has been, because we talked about Devin Funchess. He has the big body. He was that big target, but he never really seemed like he was able to put it all together. Now, can he fit in Indianapolis? Maybe. And I remember talking about this when I was a guest on the Locked On Colts podcast one day, talking about this. And I said, he doesn't have the pressure on him of being the number one receiver as he did when he was in Carolina, because you still have T.Y. Hilton, you have some other guys, especially the tight ends. So Funchess won't be the top guy, so he won't have all the attention. So maybe that'll help him. Maybe a change of scenery will help him. I don't know. But he just never seemed to fit in Carolina. So I think it was best for both parties that he moved on. I think it's kind of an addition by subtraction type thing with that. But overall, I think there's a lot of confidence to be had in this group.
Yeah, ironically, I had a bit of a sneaky hot take, and I thought that, when he went to the Colts, it all vanished, but I thought a team might actually sign Funchess and convert him to a tight end.
And I mean, look, he was a tight end in college, and got converted to receiver. They were hoping he could use it. They could use his big body out wide. Never panned out. So it does lead. You might wonder how he would have fared at tight end. We'll never know, I guess.
Well, not in Indianapolis, no, but yeah. But anyway, he's a player of a particular type, and that's fine. I think, as you said, I think this Carolina offense is going to just do fine. They're not going to have any trouble moving the ball whatsoever.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think this team's going to score points.
Sure. Hand over fist, I think. Now let's go across the defense, and we kind of. I'll skip to the back because we already kind of touched on the front seven. But it also is worth mentioning that in amongst the front seven, you've still got guys. Well, you've still got arguably one of the best linebackers in the league in Kuechly, who. I keep every time I think of him, I think that he's like much older than he is. He's actually 28, although he has had some concussion concerns, but he's only missed one game in the last 2 seasons, so that's at least a really good positive. So the front seven is super strong, but I think that the secondary is where there's some question marks. Certainly at safety, for sure. Dante Jackson, who you picked in the second round last year, has potential. James Bradbury has been a bit inconsistent. Of course, Mike Adams is gone. The vet, he was pretty old anyway, but he's gone. You've got Eric Reed there, and third rounder Rashawn Golden, but it's a little shaky. It's a little shaky across the back.
Yeah, the biggest questions for me are with Golden and with Bradbury. Golden, third-round pick out of Tennessee, was pretty versatile at Tennessee. They brought him in, thought he could play nickel, maybe play safety. Wound up getting some safety work after Janoris Searcy went down with an injury. So, he got some work in there. Now he's going to get a chance to have the full offseason as the starter, because he's already running as one of the first-team safeties with Eric Reed. So maybe that'll give him that confidence boost, because he wasn't terrible last season, but there's definitely room for improvement. So maybe having Eric Reed alongside him can help develop that improvement. And then James Bradbury, like you said, very, very inconsistent last season. He's got some work to do. It could be one of those things where the competition behind him might light a fire under him. Guys like Kevon Seymour in the mix there. Ross Cockrell is back and healthy after missing pretty much all of last year with an injury. So should hopefully at least be a competition there at the second cornerback spot. But Dante Jackson, we know, had a fantastic rookie season. I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's just going to continue to get better. So at least it kind of balances out. You've got Reed and you've got Jackson as solid pieces right now in that secondary. But Golden and Bradbury have to prove to me that they can handle the spots that they're in. You're also looking for a new nickel corner because Captain Munderland is gone. But they are running Corn Elder in that spot right now, or at least he's gotten some reps at nickel. And I've always been a fan of Elder. I thought he could do well at the nickel spot. So I'd like to see him hopefully keep getting reps there and getting better. I mean, there's certainly a lot of youth on this secondary. It's just a matter of getting a lot of these young guys to develop quickly and just get on the same page. But, you also hope that the front seven can put enough pressure on the corner or on the quarterbacks to make the jobs easier on the secondary. But should they need to work, at least we know Eric Reed is out there and kind of be all over the field. So at least he has that veteran presence and that veteran savvy, as it were. So it's not a bad unit, but there's definitely room for improvement. And if that improvement comes, I think this can be a really good unit.
Yeah, and look, we know the front seven will have a huge say in how much pressure there is on the back four. Mm-hmm. It'll make a massive difference. So, listen, let's look at 2019 and how you feel they're going to go. And they actually have a really good start. They've got the Bucks twice in the first 6. They host the Jags, and they have the Cards as well in the first 6. But then things get a little bit more difficult. But 2019 in a nutshell, what are you... we've already said we think that they're a pretty good team. What are your hopes for them?
I expect them to at least compete for a playoff spot. Again, they were 7-9 in 2018, and that was with Cam being hurt and everything just completely falling apart on them and going on that 7-game losing streak. Well, you turn a couple. It shouldn't be that hard with the way the team is on paper now. It shouldn't be too hard to turn at least 2 of those losses into wins, and all of a sudden you're back with a winning record of 9-7. And we've seen plenty of times 9-7 be good enough for a playoff spot. The Eagles just last year did it. They were the number 6 seed at 9-7. In fact, I'm trying to remember if the Seahawks were 9-7 as well, or if they were 10. They might have been 10-6. But the Eagles made it to the playoffs at 9-7, and the Panthers beat the Eagles, I think, last season. So it's not like there's that much work to be done in terms of picking up extra wins to put themselves in playoff contention. And like you said, it's a pretty easy first half. Getting the Buccaneers, twice in the first 6 weeks, especially the first meeting on a short week on a Thursday night, I think bodes pretty well for the Panthers. They will be coming off a game against the Rams, but I said this is a statement. That's a statement game for the Panthers. A lot of people aren't talking about them, as you said. They're kind of flying under the radar. That Week 1 game would be a perfect opportunity for them to come in and say, "We're back. Remember us? We're back." So it starts out big with the Rams, but then the Bucks and the Cardinals, and I think the Cardinals are still going to be, as exciting as that offense is going to be to watch in Arizona. I think this team is still going to be a bit of a mess. There's going to be a lot of growing pains. I don't expect this team to win more than 4 games this season. So there's at least 3 wins there between the Buccaneers twice and the Cardinals. The Jaguars are going to be interesting. We'll have to see how everything gels with a new quarterback and kind of everything going on. So the Jaguars will be an intriguing game. But then they visit the 49ers, which could be a toss-up. They host the Titans, which we talked about the Titans earlier in their quarterback situation. But then things start to get fun. They've got the Packers on the road, and then they've got pretty much the rest of their division games. 4 of their last 7 or 8 are within their division. Both games against the Falcons, both against the Saints. They have the Seahawks at home. They have the Colts on the road. So it's really important that they get off to a fast start with how, quote-unquote, easy, compared to the second half of the schedule that they have. So if they can get off to a start like they did last year, about 6-2, going into the second half of the season, then I think they'll feel good about themselves. That they could probably take some of these games, maybe take a game or both against the Falcons, maybe at least split with the Saints. I've said it, many times, but it shouldn't be that hard, I think, for the Panthers to get to about 10 wins. and be right there in the playoff hunt. And maybe even, they could be in the division race. You never know. The Saints could always take a step back. Are they going to go 13-3 again? I don't know. Maybe they could drop back to, say, 11-5. And it could put the Panthers in a spot where winning both games against the Saints could get them the division title, especially considering they end the season at home against the Saints. I mean, you never know. That game could be for the division title. There's a lot of questions here, but I think there should be a lot of excitement, too, this year with the Panthers.
Yeah, my word. And, I'm always in two minds as to whether it's good to have a hard start first, because then sometimes you can catch some of the better teams sort of napping a little bit, or whether it's better to get some momentum up and then that can really carry you through the second half of the season. And I think that's probably the best way to go, to be honest. And I remember last year, it wouldn't have been a surprise to you, obviously, but I remember it was a surprise to me to see the Panthers 6-2. Like, they just seemed to do it just, no one was really watching. And they just suddenly were one of the better teams in the NFL before Cam got hurt. So
it just always feels like every year this is always such an underrated team, or always a under the radar team. It never fails. Even with the year they went 15-1, it just still feels like no one really talks about the Panthers as much as they sometimes should. It's weird. I don't know. It just feels like they're that team often. They don't get a lot of highlights. They don't get the headlines. But I think they like it that way. I think they're going to enjoy being kind of that sleeper type team. I think they'll enjoy the fact that everyone's talking about the Saints, the Eagles, the Rams, the Seahawks. I think they're going to be perfectly fine with that, so that they could sneak up on everyone like they did last year, or at least early on last year.
Oh, absolutely. Now, speaking of it, you've given me the perfect segue, actually, because speaking of headlines, one of the things we're asking people right at the end of our previews is if we just go ahead 12 months, write the headline for the Panthers 2019 season. What would it be?
That's a good question. I like that. Panthers 2019 headline will be Cam Newton erases all doubts. Cam Newton comes back and proves that 2018 was a fluke. He's fully healthy. He's ready to rumble, and Christian McCaffrey suddenly becomes, if he hasn't become already, but Christian McCaffrey joins the elite tier of NFL running backs, and coming off another playoff appearance, and maybe even a playoff win. They haven't done that in a while, so it'd be nice if they can go into 2020 or come out of 2019 with a playoff win. But I think the headline is going to be that Cam Newton's shoulder doesn't bother him, and Christian McCaffrey continues to step toward that elite status. Like I said, if he isn't already there in some minds, 2019 is going to be all of it. Because this Panthers offense is going to go as far as Cam and McCaffrey will allow them to go, I think.
True.
If those two play at a high level, this team can go very far, I think. So I think that would be the headline, is Cam and Christian, the CNC duo, as it were, for lack of a better term. I could already feel the audience throwing tomatoes at me. Okay. They become the next dynamic duo in the NFL.
If CMC does 1,000 on the ground and 100 receptions again, he's surely got to be in serious consideration for MVP.
He has. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and can we not, just real quick too, I would also like MVP voters to remember that there are other positions besides quarterback. I mean, did we forget that Aaron Donald had one of the greatest defensive seasons in history last year? There are you can have an MVP not be a quarterback, just so you know. And you're right. I mean, look, it would be something if McCaffrey would have 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards, wouldn't it? That would be scary to think of.
Yeah.
And if he does that, I mean, you have to strongly consider him for MVP, because off the top of my head, I don't know if any running back's done that.
I don't think so.
1,000 each.
Yeah.
And I mean, Christian McCaffrey might have the talent ability to do that. I mean, you said yourself, he had 1,000 rushing yards and almost 900 receiving yards.
Yes, already.
So
Yeah.
it's actually not going to take that much more for him to get 1,000 each.
No. If he just pops a couple, that's it. He's got it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, say 100? What was he? 120 shy of 1,000, I think, last year.
Right.
That's only. That's not even 10 yards a game.
No.
So he adds 10 yards to each of his totals over 16 games. There's your 1,000. And all he has to do is just keep the same pace he did last year on the ground. So it's not out of the question. That could be your headline, too. That could be a potential headline for 2019. Christian McCaffrey becomes the first member of the 1,000 club.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be glorious? And you couldn't... Surely if he did that, he would just have to be a shoo-in for MVP. And as I said, I agree with you. I hate the fact that there just seem to be... The people on that panel, there just seem to be a number of them who just sort of think, the way of, the quarterback touches the ball on every play. He has to be the most important. It's like, come on. I mean, that year that J.J. Watt had, and he didn't win MVP, then it was a bit like...
I voted for him that year.
Oh, my word. I mean, that was a ridiculous year. That was the year where it was like, if he wasn't going to do it, then if a defensive player was ever going to do it, was going to be that year.
Exactly. We've seen it twice in the last couple of years that a defensive player had such a strong case for MVP, and it didn't happen. And I get it. Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns.
Right.
So I get people are in love with, the high number of touchdowns. So there's no doubt that he was an MVP candidate. I mean, without Mahomes, the Chiefs don't go as far as they do. But let's at least show some love to Aaron Donald. I mean, the guy can be double team, triple team, probably quadruple team, and he'll still find a way to the backfield. It's almost even unfair to say that he's the player that he's the measuring stick of defensive tackles, because no one else is on his level.
No.
Except maybe J.J. Watt. And he plays defensive end. If we're talking defensive tackles, there's no player on the level of Aaron Donald. Like, it's not even close. So I don't even feel like it's doing Aaron Donald justice to call him the measuring stick, because that would just make us have way too much expectations for some of these other players. You probably have to go down to, down the line, maybe even someone like Gerald McCoy or, some of these other defensive tackles, and kind of use them as the measuring stick to rate some of these incoming defensive tackles, just because of how good Aaron Donald is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The guy's an absolute freak. It's not even... You're absolutely right.
He wasn't even a top 10 pick because he was too small.
It just always... It kind of knocks me out when players get compared... Well, it happens on both sides of the ball, I know. But when they compare players to Aaron Donald, and you think, come on. Don't do that.
I mean, I'll admit, like, I haven't gotten into that yet because, I'm not that skilled yet. But also, it's tough to compare players to other players because everybody's different. Everyone's their own individual player. Like, he might remind you of someone, but sometimes I think that's just a media thing too. And it's all in good fun too. I'm not knocking it by any means.
Sure.
But, it's always fun, and like draft guys or whatever say, okay, this player compares to so-and-so. This wide receiver reminds me of Wes Welker, or this running back reminds me of Le'Veon Bell, or whatever the case may be. I guess they do that just for like the casual fan to give them an idea, but in the end, these players are all their own, have their own unique abilities that may not come totally. And like the whole Aaron Donald thing, like who knows when we'll ever see a player the caliber of Aaron Donald. He's a once in a generation type player, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, he could have the hat trick of Defensive Player of the Year, easily.
I mean, right now it's hard to think of a player that's going to stop him.
Yeah, I mean, Khalil Mack is, his value's sort of been hurt a little bit because he's sort of standing up most of the time as opposed to, So
yeah, he'd maybe be the only one, maybe Von Miller, but there's not a lot. There's just no one, not just on the defensive tackle, but just any defensive player. There's no one on his level. It's almost scary to think about, but it's so fun to watch.
It definitely is. It definitely is. Well, listen, Bill, I'm going to let you go. It's been fantastic chatting to you, and very good luck in SFB 9. We'll both need it. I think it's such a massive field this year.
And it's all, listen, I love, every year I get that email, I'm always excited. You know, this is my 4th year in the league, and it doesn't get old. You know, this is probably the most unique fantasy league out there. And I mean, it's not like just a bunch of random people play this. I mean, there's some big names that play in this league. I mean, Matthew Berry is in this league.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the CBS guys, like Jamie Eisenberg and Dave Richard, are in this league.
Yep.
A bunch of guys from NFL.com are in this league. Like Adam Rank, he's in this league. There's a lot of well-known fantasy experts that even just the casual fan are going to know that are in this league. That's how exciting, this league is. We have a chance to say, yeah, we're in a fantasy league with Matthew Berry or Dave Richard or insert top fantasy expert here.
Right.
And that's what makes this league so much fun. And I mean, the whole cause of the league too, like what it's raising awareness for, is really the most important part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the really cool things, sort of talking about that, is how if every week you'll see like a league table of basically, well, this year from 1 all the way down to 1,200. Mm-hmm. So no matter how you're doing, you can always look and see how other people are performing and kind of compare yourself, I guess, to some of those really high profile guys.
No, absolutely. And I mean, even just, getting wins is nice, but at least this is a league setup too, where if you're scoring points, you also still have a good shot of making the playoffs. So it makes it a lot more fair in that aspect. And just the crazy scoring too. The bonus points for the rushing and receiving, the extra points for tight ends. I mean, it really helps balance out a lot of these positions. So it's not just, just the fun of drafting in this league with all these players, but it's also fun to see the different strategies, at least early on, with a lot of these players. Do you go running back? Do you grab a tight end early, which I did. I actually took Zach Ertz in round 2. The whole quarterback thing, of course, because of the super flex. There's a lot of there's no set strategy in this league, and that's what makes it fun. There's a lot of different combinations that will win you in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Bill, thanks so much for your time, and I'll let you go. I've had you on the line for a while, but it's always good chatting to you. And as I said at the top, people can catch you at Bill Riccette on Twitter, and they can see all the things that you're doing. And I see you're doing Downtown Rams as well now. Man, you're doing a lot of things. But as I said, it's all good fun, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I love it. It's and it's nice too, because it's not just being able to write, but it really has given me an even more broader scope of the league than I already have. I mean, you get in this field, even just writing about one team, you still got to be aware of what's going on around the league. So I've felt I've had a good grasp. Now with all this stuff going on, it gives me more of an ability to see what's going on throughout the league. I mean, I'll be covering the NFC East for one site, and then covering the Rams and talking about the West teams on the other. So I'll be kind of like all over the place, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to this season, because this will be, no doubt, I think my busiest season since I've started covering the league. How many years ago? So I can't wait. I'm excited for this year. I think this will be the best year yet.
Awesome. Well, not too long to wait now.
November comes and college basketball starts. I'll be even more busy and have even more fun. That's my fun time from November to March.
Oh, nice. Well, probably a good thing I spoke to you now, because I think in season it'll be next to impossible. You'll be
no, I'm sure I'll make time.
Nose to the grindstone. But yeah, cheers. Thanks so much for your time. Always great to chat. So thank you. Well, hope you enjoyed that. That was our Panthers preview with Bill Riccette. He's a champion. We've had him on a few times now. I originally met him, as I said, in the SFB, and he knows his stuff. It's good to talk to him. And the Panthers are quite underrated, I think. I think they're going to do it quietly really, really well. But when you got guys like Christian McCaffrey in your offense, well, it's hard not to do well, to be honest. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying our team previews. We're cracking along. Well, I should say I'm cracking along. G's sunning his backside on Spanish Beach still. But, I'm doing the hard yards, and that's fine. I'll get all the hot tips fantasy-wise, and I won't share any of them with him. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying these. Thanks so much for listening. Really do appreciate it. And on behalf of G and myself, we'll catch you later.